The rain poured relentlessly over the city that evening, blurring the golden lights of skyscrapers into shimmering streaks. The sidewalks glistened, littered with reflections of umbrellas and hurried footsteps. Amid the chaos, a man in a worn-out uniform sprinted across the street, clutching a small plastic bag to his chest as if it were life itself. His name was Ethan Cole, a janitor, a widowed single father, and a man who knew the weight of every coin he earned. Inside that plastic bag was a small bottle of medicine, one that belonged not to his daughter, but to someone else's. He didn't yet know that returning it would change his life forever, if you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the power of doing the right thing even when no one's watching. Please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support helps stories like this reach more hearts. Ethan worked the night shift at a towering glass building that housed one of the country's most powerful corporations, Valentech Industries. He was one of dozens of janitors invisible to the people in suits who passed him every day. His hands were cracked from bleach, his back ached from bending, and his shoes were so worn the soles whispered against the floor. But he smiled every morning before heading to work because of one reason: his little girl, Lily. She was only 8, a delicate child with asthma so severe it made every cold night a battle. Ever since his wife passed away during childbirth, Ethan's world had revolved around that small apartment, that small girl, and her fragile breaths that reminded him why he kept going. That night, as he mopped the marble floors of the Valentech lobby, he noticed something strange near the elevator. A small pink bag lay forgotten on one of the benches, the kind a child might carry. He looked around, but the hall was empty. Everyone had already left. Curious and cautious, he opened it to see if there was any identification inside. What he found made his heart skip. Inside were a few crayons, a water bottle, a drawing of a woman in a blue dress, and a small box of medicine labeled Isabella Grant. His brow furrowed. He recognized that name, Grant, as in Victoria Grant, the CEO of Valentech, the most powerful woman in the building, maybe the entire city. He hesitated, wondering what to do. It was late, and security had already locked the upper floors. He could have left it at the front desk and gone home to his sleeping daughter. But something about that medicine, the urgent label, the dosage instructions, made him uneasy. If this belonged to a child, she might need it soon. So instead of clocking out, Ethan made a decision. He would find a way to return it tonight. He asked the security guard for the CEO's address, but of course the guard refused. "Are you crazy?" the man said. "You can't just show up at Victoria Grant's house." But Ethan couldn't let it go. He waited until he found the company directory left open at the reception desk and quietly noted an address listed under executive delivery. It was a long shot, maybe outdated, but it was all he had. So, he stepped out into the rain, tucked the small bag beneath his jacket, and boarded the last bus heading toward the city's wealthiest district. The ride felt endless. His clothes were soaked and he shivered from exhaustion. He thought of Lily, asleep in their small apartment, her tiny chest rising and falling to the faint hum of the inhaler machine. He whispered a silent promise that he'd be back soon. When the bus stopped at its final stop, Ethan stepped off into a street of gated mansions, every house glowing like a world far removed from his own. Finally, he spotted the name on a gate: Grant Residence. The security cameras followed him as he approached. He pressed the intercom, his voice trembling. Hi, my name's Ethan. I found something that belongs to Miss Grant. It's her daughter's medicine. I just wanted to return it." There was silence, then static. A deep voice told him to wait. A few minutes later, the iron gates opened slowly, revealing a long driveway lined with trees and soft garden lights. Ethan hesitated but stepped forward. At the door, he was greeted by a woman in her 40s, dressed in silk and diamonds, Victoria Grant herself. She looked nothing like she did on television. There, she was polished, commanding, perfect. Here, she looked tired, her eyes rimmed with sleeplessness. "You said you have something of mine?" she asked coldly. Ethan held out the small bag. "Your daughter's medicine, ma'am. She must have dropped it at the office. I thought she might need it." Victoria's expression faltered. For the briefest moment, her gaze softened. She reached for the bag, opening it with shaking hands. "You brought this all the way here?" she whispered. "You could have just left it at reception." Ethan shrugged, his voice low. "It's medicine. For a child. I didn't want to risk it." For a long pause, Victoria said nothing. Then faintly from inside the house came a small fragile cough, followed by the sound of a child calling, "Mom?" Ethan turned instinctively toward the sound, and there, in the doorway of the living room, stood a little girl in a pink nightgown, her hair tousled, her face pale. She looked no older than Lily. "Mom, did someone bring my bag?" she asked softly. Victoria's voice broke as she nodded. "Yes, sweetheart." He did. That moment, something in Victoria's stern facade melted. She turned to Ethan and said, "Wait here." Moments later, she returned with a towel and a steaming mug. "You're drenched," she said. "At least warm yourself before you go." Ethan tried to refuse, but the exhaustion hit him all at once. He accepted the cup with trembling hands, murmuring thanks. He didn't stay long. He didn't belong in that house under those crystal lights. Before leaving, Victoria asked his name. "Ethan Cole," he said. "I clean your offices at night." She nodded slowly. "Thank you, Mr. Cole, truly." When Ethan returned home, it was past midnight. Lily stirred as he entered, coughing weakly. He sat beside her, pressing a kiss to her forehead. She smiled sleepily. "Did you save someone tonight, Daddy?" He chuckled softly. "Maybe, sweetheart. Maybe I did." He didn't know that the story of that night would soon reach every corner of his world. The next morning, Ethan arrived at work as usual. The other janitors were buzzing with gossip. "Hey, did you hear? The CEO's daughter was rushed to the hospital last night. Asthma attack. Someone found her missing medicine just in time." Ethan froze. His heart pounded. So he had been right. That small act had saved a child's life. He said nothing, just continued cleaning, though his hands shook with quiet relief. A few hours later, a voice echoed through the lobby speakers. "Mr. Ethan Cole, please report to the CEO's office." The janitors stared at him wide-eyed. "What did you do, man?" one whispered. Ethan's mind raced as he took the elevator up. When the doors opened, he found Victoria Grant waiting by her massive glass desk. But this time she wasn't in a power suit. She was in simple clothes, her eyes softer than he'd ever seen them. "Mr. Cole," she began, "I owe you something no amount of money could repay. Last night my daughter couldn't breathe. The doctors said if her medicine hadn't arrived when it did..." Her voice trembled. "You saved her life." Ethan shifted uncomfortably. "I just did what anyone would have done." But Victoria shook her head. "No, not everyone would have crossed the city in the rain for a stranger's child." She paused, then added, "Tell me, how long have you worked here?" Ethan thought for a moment. "Almost 6 years, ma'am. Part-time, mostly. It's flexible, so I can take care of my daughter." "You have a child?" she asked. "Yes, ma'am. Lily. She's 8. For the next few minutes they spoke, not like CEO and janitor, but like two parents who understood love's quiet sacrifices. When Ethan turned to leave, Victoria stopped him. "One more thing," she said. "You'll be reporting to me from now on." Ethan blinked in confusion. "Ma'am?" She smiled gently. "I've just created a new position. Facilities coordinator. Better hours, full benefits. Consider it my way of saying thank you." Ethan could barely speak. He tried to decline, but she raised a hand. "It's not charity, Mr. Cole, it's recognition. You have integrity, and that's rare." For the first time in years, Ethan walked out of that building not as the invisible janitor, but as a man seen for his worth. Weeks passed and life began to change. Lily's treatments improved. Ethan could finally afford her medications without skipping meals. He moved them into a better apartment, one with windows that caught the morning light. And yet he never forgot that night in the rain, or the little girl named Isabella who had unknowingly connected two very different lives. Months later, on a sunny spring morning, Ethan was asked to attend a company event. It was Isabella's 9th birthday, and Victoria wanted to celebrate at the office with all the staff who had helped her over the years. Ethan hesitated but agreed. When he arrived, the little girl ran up to him with a shy smile. "Mom says you're the man who brought my medicine that night," she said. "Thank you." She handed him a drawing, a stick figure man holding hands with two girls under a rainbow. At the top, in a child's uneven handwriting, it read, "Heroes don't always wear suits." Ethan couldn't hold back his tears. Victoria stood nearby, watching silently. When their eyes met, she said softly, "You changed more than one life that night. Ethan, you reminded me what really matters." For a long moment, They stood there, two parents bound not by status, but by love and humanity. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe. Your support keeps stories of kindness alive, stories that remind us there's still good in the world. Before we end, I have one small request. Comment below. Do you believe one small act of kindness can change a life? Because sometimes that's all it takes. One selfless choice, one rainy night, and one man who decided to care. And in that moment, the world becomes just a little bit brighter.